Co-main event was canceled. That Khabib Nurmagomedov had weight-cutting issues that left him hospitalized Thursday night going into early Friday morning. He was unable to make weight, so his fight with Tony Ferguson was canceled.
Yeah, I think it also hurt because it was such an amazing fight. I mean, I don't think it's, you have to go out on a limb saying that I think that's the fight that almost everybody was most looking forward to. I mean, when that fight got canceled, everybody I spoke to was the fight they were most looking forward to was watching that matchup. And so knowing that, it got pulled, I think it hurt it more so than just being another star-powered fight on that card.
Yeah,
I think it being the fight that everybody wanted to see the most, I think, is what really knocked the wind out of him.
Yeah, I agree. I was crushed when I saw that got canceled. Now, specifically about the weight cutting issues, and I'm thinking maybe you can kind of help enlighten fans and myself for that matter. I mean, people who haven't been on that side of it, and I know being a heavyweight, you haven't had to deal with weight cutting issues the way that a lot of the lower weight classes do. But when we hear fighters called unprofessional for not making weight, and by the way, just today, and I don't know if you've seen any of Tony Ferguson's comments, but that's the side of this that he's coming down on, saying that it's disrespectful and unprofessional. To the average person, they're just used to trying to go on a diet and maybe missing their goal or something. So contrasted against that, Frank, when we hear fighters describe a fighter missing weight as unprofessional, disrespectful, inexcusable, is that a hyperbole, or why is that particular task held in such high regard with fighters?
Well, I think that because it really doesn't fall upon talent or luck. I think a lot of weight cutting they feel is just basically just hardcore discipline. It's basically restricting what calories you're eating leading up, training hard, and then starting to do the whole thing with the hydration and watching where your water levels are and whatnot. That being said, I mean, there are times. I mean, not every situation is the same. Not all crimes. That's where you have a judge, and so Nurmagomedov. It's easier when you see certain guys like, I don't want to, I'm not going to say a specific name, so I don't want to be, called out for singling out anybody, but there are other guys that have missed weight and they look smooth. They look a little chubby. They look like, hey man, you might have actually been able to maybe diet down a little bit more in the last 8 weeks and not just try to suck water out of your body leading up to the fight. Whereas, I didn't get that impression. I feel that maybe it was just a miscalculation. I mean, he is traveling from, across the world. I can only sympathize a little bit because I travel a lot from the U.S. going back to Russia to call fights and, for the ACB. And so I couldn't imagine. I mean, sometimes when I go there, I've even thought about that. Like, shit, man, how would I feel in a few days fighting somebody? I'm like, this doesn't feel good getting on 24 hours of travel, It's like, that's not really what I want to do right now. And so, Khabib did not look fat, I mean, just to put it, as plainly as possible. Like when he was doing his fighter workouts, he looked like the same Khabib that I've always seen. He's a thicker guy who's muscular and lean, and just, maybe he had changed something to gain some extra strength. Fighters, are always looking to get an edge. So he could have changed a strength routine that put a little bit more weight on him. He could have tried a new diet. Who knows? But what I do feel comfortable saying, and not to take anything away from Tony Ferguson, I know he's very upset at the opportunity of fighting and becoming possibly the interim champ. So, I mean, he has all the right in the world to be pissed off. He made weight, so I get it. But I don't really feel like it came from a lack of discipline. I feel like there was a miscalculation with Khabib. Like somebody somewhere in the camp, they screwed up somewhere, and if anything, I think it shows how hard he tried to make up for it and cut back down. The guy got driven to the hospital. He got hospitalized because he was trying to, to cut the, get the weight down that, to be able to make the fight.
Yeah, and it was revealed that there was at least some attempt to keep Tony Ferguson on the card. They offered him Michael Johnson, and Michael Johnson, I guess, was already within lightweight striking distance. I don't know if he was here with Rashad Evans. I know they used to be training partners back at Black Zillions. I don't know if he was just going to fly in. I don't know if he was already around or what, but that was a name that came up. The thing about that was that he was the last person to defeat Tony Ferguson. After Ferguson, right before Ferguson went on this crazy win streak. So there would have been some history there. Ferguson declined the fight because, number one, it would not be for an interim lightweight title, as the fight with Nurmagomedov was scheduled to be. And I understood why the UFC wouldn't put an interim title on the line if it was Ferguson and Johnson, because you can't have. I think Johnson's lost 2 of his last 3, something like that. I mean, you can't crown a champion on that kind of streak, and then you certainly couldn't give it to Ferguson even with a win. That wouldn't seem right. But then there was also a money issue, and Ferguson said it was for less money. That's kind of the part that surprised me. I get that you can't make it for an interim title, but given the fact that you still needed to sell pay-per-views and stuff like that, I was a little surprised that the UFC wasn't offering him the same money to fight, just to stay on the card and fight anybody. Does that surprise you a bit?
Well, yeah, it does, actually. I mean, I think Tony, that alone was a reason for him not to take the fight. The fact that he trained, expected a certain payday, and for them to, change it down to a lower price, kind of an insult that he showed up into his job. I thought they should have stuck to the original, payment, because, to do him, credit, to give him, some kind of a payoff for his hard work. But I guess, now with the modern era of, the new ownership, maybe not. I mean, still, they're cutting a large portion of all the people that produce the UFC, all the support of the organization. They've cut back 20%. They're letting fighters go. They're cutting the back amount of shows they're doing. So it looks to me it's a corporation that was purchased, and now they're trying to cut corners and try to get back some of that income as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Now the other weird thing too was, and I didn't see exact clarification on whether or not Ferguson got paid his show money even without fighting, because that also has been fairly commonplace when one fighter misses weight and through no fault of the other guy, that guy gets paid show money. So maybe the discrepancy was in not show money, but what he was going to get paid if he won. I'd have to do a little digging on that, because I don't remember that being clarified in the aftermath of the fight. But nonetheless, Ferguson said, "Hey, it's not the same deal, so I'm going to decline the fight."
Yeah. It is strange, though. I would love to hear more details on that, because why wouldn't it be the same deal?
Yeah,
you're right. Might as well get rid of the interim title. I get that, but I mean, it's an interesting fight. I mean, he's fighting somebody, like you said, that he holds his last win over, and so I thought it was a cool idea to have them fight each other. Like, it makes sense. The guy's taking on short notice, but you redeem, the last guy that ever beat him. I thought it gave some incentive to Ferguson, to take the fight.
Yeah, and I just hate it now that we don't know where this whole where this fight sits. I mean, they've had it scheduled several times. It's never been called off in this exact manner, but because of injuries, the fight has fallen out a couple of times before, and now. When I was at the post-fight press conference, Dana White told the media members assembled that he doesn't know if Khabib can make the weight, because he's had 2 really bad weight cuts now in a row, one of which, of course, resulted in cancellation of a fight. So he's talking openly about whether or not Khabib can even compete at lightweight, which, given where Khabib has been in his in his career, even despite the injuries, that's kind of a big blow too, because I think this is a guy that people have been waiting to see challenge for the lightweight title for years now.
Yeah, I think it would be a huge loss to the division. I think that I think that a huge narrative right now is just basically Khabib and Conor, and that, collision course that hopefully they're both on. If, they lose Khabib, Tony Ferguson, I think still, obviously a very game and dangerous opponent for Conor, but I feel that Khabib just on an international level too is just, makes such a huge fight.
Yeah, lots of Russian fans that were anxious to see him.